All right, we're waiting to get Mark in. Is he, he's got it. He sent the information. All right, why don't we, kick this off? I'd like to call the, regularly scheduled, Tweeden Haven, Airport Authority Board of Directors meeting to order for October 18th, 2023. First order of business is the minutes. Is there a motion to approve? A second? Yep, well, that will come after we have the motion and second. Thank you. Questions, comments?
Yeah, and I apologize for not making the last meeting.
Don't worry about it.
On the second page, this second paragraph, we're talking about the PFAS
PFAS, yeah.
studies that Connecticut's doing. Is that, where in Connecticut is that? Is that being done around here?
There are different locations. The one closest to us is in, I believe, the Sound. They're studying the in the silver sides, if there's PFAS in it. So it's related to the airport, but there's reference made to the airport.
Not right nearby here.
No.
Then Tom, you at the bottom of the page, you referenced that you might see the EA by the end of next week, which would have been the end of September.
Still waiting.
Okay.
We'll have an update on the executive director's report.
Page 4. Top of the page where Kenny was talking about PFAS. And then Tom, you mentioned that the new truck was deferred. But later on in the meeting, somebody else mentioned that we may expect developers to bring in the 800s again during the winter. So is that?
No, so they have enough equipment to address the 800s and increase in the index.
Okay.
But any new truck, we would make it easier, try to just fill it with the
new stuff.
pumps. Right. Right now, they're not sure if you have to get rid of all the plumbing or the pumps or what.
Okay. No, I understood that part of it. I'm just wondering.
No, we
deferred the truck, but I didn't know whether or not.
we still have enough equipment to handle the 800s if we have to increase the index.
Okay. Kenny mentioned something about grants for a new truck, and you said you didn't know if any grants were available. Is there something on your team that goes and looks at this stuff?
I think that was for the removal of the PFAS.
Or the transition? Yeah, I'm sorry.
New trucks, we definitely have funding for.
Yeah.
But the transition.
Guys.
The transition is what they're still looking into, how that's gonna happen, if they'll be funded.
Okay. Somebody had a question.
And no,
I don't think you're still at the floor. Go ahead.
Okay. Then you took 2 actions. One was to get the airports 101 out, which I got twice now, because you gave it to me when I first joined. But thank you. But the second action was to provide airport organization structure to
see
the
that
public.
tonight.
Okay, but that was in your airports 101 package also. I just want to let you know.
Well, that was.
I may have not been up to date.
But I want to look to Linda because she requested this. Was the personnel org chart that was in there? I believe what Linda was asking for was more of an org chart of the entities and who does what.
Okay.
And
I
that's
thought
what
all
you'll
was more than-
Well, you'll see it tonight in a different fashion. So
Right.
I mean,
Page 5. The action on moving the meeting and the time, I didn't see
we
anything.
have results on that. That we do.
I'm a good straight man. Let's see, page 7. No last questions. Explain to me the difference between, we talked about a runway sweeper and a runway plow, and then like a runway blower.
So
Is there a
I'll,
difference between the blower and the?
I'll explain it and then Jeremy can clarify what pieces they actually have. A sweeper is just that, a big wide sweeper that you, typically what you'll do is run a plow down, push it over, and you'll have a blower. It's just one enormous snow blower that comes down and shoots over the line.
Oh, okay, so the blower is a snow blower, not just, I'm
Snow
thinking of
blower.
something that's air, and I'm thinking,
No,
what's
no,
the
no.
difference?
It's like a regular snow blower,
Okay.
only huge. And there are some pieces, I don't know if we have them here, I have to verify with Jeremy. Some you can interchange all three pieces, some you have, dual purpose, and
Right.
some are single purpose.
Okay. I think you answered my question. And then down the bottom, start talking about the life cycle. And, I think you might have mentioned it, Tom, that there's daily self-inspections and then there's some periodic formal inspections. And I did some research on the PCI. So do we know what that is right now?
What our PCIs are?
Yeah.
I don't know, Jeremy, do you have the recent map with PCI? What it normally do, Mark, is just show you each piece of pavement.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
runways, taxiways, and they'll show you conditions and gives you the history.
Right. Okay.
I'd have to ask Jeremy.
Yeah, I know, there's
PCI.
all kinds of reports and everything.
The other thing to note is this, that you can extend the useful life of a pavement by doing certain maintenance,
Yep.
crack seal and, seal coat.
Yep.
So,
Understand.
but I'm pretty sure we have the PCI, I'd have to ask the engineers. for my reports.
And then I think what the FAA looks at is some 20-year lifespan of the runway, so. I think at least the way it read to me at the last meeting, we were uncertain as to where we were in that life cycle. I would have thought that after daily inspections and periodic inspections, we kind of know we're in the
And then-
5-year window or.
There's two different things here. The FAA life cycle, that's for planning and funding.
Right.
So in other words, you can't go and reapply for another runway until at least 20 years of its useful life.
I would have thought on that curve, probably when you're on that curve, when you get to like fair is probably when you want to start planning.
Yes, and in fact, that's what they say, it's fair planning.
Right.
When you go, I think that's like a yellow or something.
Yeah.
And then by X time, you have to have a plan ready to go.
So I assume we're above fair right now.
Yes.
We built this up on.
Yes, because our certification inspection would have revealed if it was different.
Page 7, I think you answered the question. On the flooding planning, it looks like we tried to address like what we would do if it floods, but is there other stuff we're looking at besides the EA to curtail
yeah.
the actual flooding specifically
Well, to curtail the flooding
as best you can?
on this side, I think the plan is more how to address if it does flood. And Avports has put together a very good plan. They're in the process of finalizing it. They have been interfacing with the city emergency management. In fact, just the other day, Michael had some meetings to tie up some loose ends on it. So they have a whole plan for if we do flood again, how to handle that,
Right.
how to relocate the people, how to better utilize our facility, all of those things.
We're not looking at right now, looking at.
There's not much we can do to,
Okay.
We're certainly doing whatever we can to minimize it, but
Right. Okay. And I guess some like general comments, when we get to the public comments, it seems like we took actions or people wanted us to take actions, like how do we, as a board, how do we handle that?
I try to make notes and go back with the minutes of what public comments are there and then try to address those in
In your,
the
in this
future meeting.
meeting,
Yeah.
okay, so you may address some of these. I don't want to ask you again, but.
And Mark, to that point as well, we're looking at trying to put together an FAQ page because some of those have been asked a few
Right,
times.
so that's what I was gonna say, in your airport
That's-
101, there's a bunch of good information in there that.
Yeah, we're gonna
I
start,
read like the last,
We're-
I don't know, probably 6 or 8 different meeting minutes, and a lot of that stuff's in your packet.
this, yeah,
I think it's a little out of date, and you may want to start there, but I think that might be a good thing to put on the website. maybe. People.
it's, stealing my thunder here.
All right. Well,
Get my report.
You didn't answer any questions yet. You said, I got that later.
I got all my report.
That's right. All right, that's all.
Are you
I-
good?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Anyone else with any questions or comments? Suggested changes? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Let me try your minds. All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Those on the screen.
Aye.
first. Those in the room. Aye. That motion carries. Okay, item 2, Here's where you get the answers, or some of them anyway.
First thing on my list.
Executive
Airport
director.
101 has been put on the
Yep.
website, but to your point, I think you're right. We'll look to update that, and we are looking to put on an FAQ section. So that, again, sometimes somebody may ask a question in the public, one of our meetings, and 3 months later, somebody else asks the same question. We can, hopefully minimize that and educate the public a little more. The other thing was, that's been sent to the members, has been put on the website. And to Linda's request about the org chart, Milena has put together something that, Felipe, I don't know if you can share the screen or how you want to do this. We have a PowerPoint of an org chart, and please let me know if you want it differently or what you're thinking or whatever, but I think it was to try to give the public an idea of which entity controlled and did what, where, and, a little bit of a layout of it. So again, I'll give Milena the credit. She did a great job. I just threw some information down. She put the magic into it. So you can flip the next one. Well, and that was it. So
Look good from the start.
okay, can you go to the next slide, please? Not advancing. There you go. Back. Don't steal our thunder. Keep going back to the beginning. There you go. Is that? Yes. So at the top, we have, there you go. You have the city of New Haven, who owns the land at the airport. They've leased the land to Tweed New Haven Airport Authority. Part of the land is in the town of East Haven, and there's another portion that is in New Haven. Apport's HVN LLC has a management agreement for the day-to-day operations and maintenance. And then New Haven, the new HVN, click on the next one. This is just the overall layout. Again, City of New Haven, one more click, please. They're the owner of the land, approximately 437 acres, located in both New Haven and East Haven. They originally leased the land to the authority in 1998. And they have an amended and restated lease, which is known as the master lease, that was dated August 19th, 2022. And that expires June 30th, 2064. Next, please. Go ahead, just one more. Next, we have the authority. And under the authority, as I was saying, it's created in 1998 under Connecticut General Statutes through the master lease with the city. They control the operations and development. They entered into a management agreement for operation of the airport in July of 2000, and that's blocked there, but early 2000s with 2004 with Macquarie Aviation North America 2, doing business as Avport. Subsequently, the agreement has been amended 5 times through August 19th, 2022. And then in August of 2022, the authority entered into the 2 agreements, one amending the agreement for the operation for 43 years, and the other is the lease and development agreement for the same 43-year term. One more, if you can click again, please. Town of East Haven. As I mentioned, there's land. Portion of it is located in East Haven. The current facilities in that portion of the airport include the air traffic control tower, Robinson Aviation, Avport's maintenance and operations facility, as well as T hangars. And that's the location of the future terminal. Avport's HVN, I mentioned a little bit earlier, one more. The current management agreement is for the aeronautical portion of the airport. Previously, Their management agreement included the entire airport. That has now been split off to the new HVN, and I'll get into that in a second. And they're responsible for the day-to-day operations and development of the airfield, including the extension of the runway. New HVN is next. And the new HVN LLC, it's a subsidiary of Airports, it's acquired, Goldman Sachs acquired Airports in 2018. And they manage and develop all non-aeronautical activities, including construction of the new terminal. Now, I don't know if that answered all the questions, but, and I'll be glad to supplement, do whatever you need there. But
Great job.
one more slide, if you don't mind. This, it's kind of rough, but you can see the line kind of right down the middle of the runway. And on the left side is New Haven, on the east side, the other side is East Haven. And I just want to make the comment that no matter who owns the land or where it is located, it is all still considered federally obligated property, airport property in the FAA's eyes. What that means is there's a lot of things associated with the grants we receive. The grant assurances have a lot of different, ties to them. So it's still obligated as federal land.
Where's that documentation?
The grant assurances,
Or just the fact that it's
obligated.
obligated to the government.
It's identified in the grant assurances as well as the compliance, the airport compliance manual. I can give you the links.
Yeah.
They're
or
very
on the
lengthy.
website.
And if you, it's big documents. But if you have any specific questions too, I can.
Yeah, no, I'd like to.
Sure. Okay. And that's, like I say, if you want more information or if there's something I missed, let me know. And I think it's pretty helpful to get this to the public. We'll put it on the website. So they can kind of get a sense of who does what where. So,
Great piece of work, Tom. Thank you.
thank you, Melina.
Yeah, and I did see that airplane flying over. Too. Nice.
Couple of other items, the capital improvement plan. We're continuing to work with Airports and the FAA on this. We have a meeting scheduled for Monday with the FAA in person here, which I think is going to be very beneficial. And after that, we'll be finalizing CIP for presentation at the next board meeting. However, I wanted to make sure that the board knew that in order to not miss our opportunity for potential bill funding, which is bipartisan infrastructure legislation, there was a deadline of last Monday and we filed the appropriate request for the terminal project.
How often is that done? Because I noticed, again, I keep referring back to it, but in your airports 101 package, it was a capital improvement matrix table, whatever you want to call it, from February. And then I think the last meeting you mentioned.
I think that was a project update. So we get regular project updates.
Yeah.
The CIP is an annual document that must be submitted to the FAA. It's a 5-year planning funding document that goes to FAA. It rolls up into what is called the ACIP, which means all airports in the country, right? So that they can start allocating funding. The bill, and I don't know if you're asking about that or the bill funding opportunities. The bill funding opportunities, there were 5 phases to it. They're currently in, I believe, the 3rd phase, and they issue what are called NOFOs, or Notice of Funding Opportunities, in which it says, we have a pot of $1 billion or whatever. Here's what you need to do to apply, and it has to meet this criteria. And so there's only 2 more phases after that. That's why we want to get in now. I don't know if that answered your question. But...
Yeah, no, I think, so what you're saying, the February table from February in your report 101 is basically
it's a snapshot of an updated project.
of what you already got funding for.
Yes.
Okay,
And at the next meeting, you will see what we're going to be applying for in the future.
okay,
And as any other long-term funding plan, the shorter term is the more realistic, the further out you would go. It's pretty nebulous because we don't know what the money's going to be.
so do they award or allocate money every year?
They do allocate money every year, and the way it's broken down is you have entitlement money, which is a direct formula, a mathematical formula to your emplanements. So by having the increase in employments, we'll see an increase in that. There's a discretionary pot that you compete with everybody throughout the world, and it's the higher priority projects. And it's also a very dynamic plan. They will establish and say, okay, here's your CIP, but 3 months, 6 months later, they may come and change it and say, we found more money for you, or we're gonna give it to you, or we can't afford this, or we're gonna do that. So they control it, and it's dynamic. But for example, if somebody can't complete a project or get it on time or something, that may make money available. And if we have a candidate project that they didn't have enough funding for in our first round, they could give us another round of money. So
if they award you money, just want to clarify, they award you money, you're saying they could actually take it back? Is there a time period? Because I mean, obviously to go.
certain money, they have flexibility. The entitlement, they do not. The discretionary, they could reduce it if they had to. But then typically what they would do is say, okay, if we can't afford it, we're gonna put it in your next cycle.
Right.
And there's another thing called letters of intent.
Yep.
Which occasionally are used by the FAA. It's very difficult under a continuing resolution because now we don't have a program, so. You know, when they have a full program, it's a lot easier to get money than.
Right.
Does that answer your question? All right, just a couple other items. The EA update, we are still awaiting decision from the FAA on the final EA and the decision. We're expecting those to come concurrently. And in the final EA, it will include the responses to all the public questions that were asked during the process. I believe that was one of the public questions last week. So I want to make sure everybody knew that they can expect, the official response to public questions will be in the final EA once it's released by the FAA. Enough acronyms for me. Just quickly going over statistics, and again, they're in your packet, but for July, you'll see that we went from 43,261 employments up to 47,718 for the same month, 10% increase. For the 12-month period, we employed 469,995 passengers, which is 144% increase over last year. So that's still some significant growth, and I think they've realized that we are the fastest growing non-hub airport in the country. So that's good news. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Any further questions or comments? I just did want to mention on the CIP program, this is germane to some conversations we might have later. When I had the pleasure of sitting in the interim executive director role, I actually attended a CIP meeting with the FAA up in Burlington. And then wasn't there a subsequent one that we held at CAA that the FAA coordinated, correct? And we haven't done that in how long? So the FAA is no longer conducting those meetings.
We do all of our coordination directly.
Okay, thank you. All right, Chairman's report. I just have two items. The first of which is I just want to report out on a meeting that we had this morning with the city of New Haven, who occasionally ask for an update, progress towards where we're going and what's happening, what the impediments are, and where they can lend assistance. So we covered a variety of issues today, open items, master plan, environmental assessment, the environmental stewardship committee, temporary east side parking plan, and then any updates on the west terminal. So those are, and we talked about stormwater management, security, traffic calming, and I think the city expressed gratitude for the progress we've made relative to neighborhood communications, constituent communications. They singled that out.
And I apologize. I meant to mention the Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting.
There you
We
go.
had one yesterday. We did a survey, identified the top 5 topics of concern from that committee. And under those topics, we then took and looked at all the various practices and tasks and did a mini gap analysis to look at which of those are currently being done, which are being considered for future, and which are just either not, applicable or whatever, and categorize those. So we've established the framework to begin to work towards improving the environmental sustainability with some other items that are on it. So
There was a question last week about the makeup of that committee. Is that on the website somewhere? Who's on that?
Help me, Linda, are you on that? There's two members, I think, from east, two from west.
Right, it's not there.
Ken, yeah, so it's by the contract, Mark, we can put that on there for sure. Well, on the website are the minutes from the meetings as well.
Okay, so they'll be on the website.
Yeah.
All right,
And I don't know if the recording is or not,
Yes.
but
okay.
yeah, the layout, everything, our agendas are there. Sorry about that. That's quite all right.
And just in fairness, we are prepared, and actually that meeting this morning was attended by representatives from Avports as well as the Tom and Malane and myself. And I think there were at least two representatives from Avports and one from one of Avports attorneys. So we were, but the point I want to make is those type of meetings are available to the city of East Haven as well. We did.
That's good.
I did.
Did you even ask you to say, hey, let's get together, or are you on full schedule with them?
They've been proactive in looking for updates, particularly as Tom's kind of gotten
They
on
asked to
board.
schedule that meeting as at least some.
So
So it's not gonna-
they have not asked for that, but we're more than happy to have similar type meetings.
But is it like a regular schedule, like every,
No,
just ad hoc?
they are ad hoc. We did discuss this morning the potential establishment of a standing meeting, but we didn't come to any conclusions on that this morning.
And it's just an informational meeting?
Yeah.
There's just like no minutes or anything, that's,
Nope.
there's nothing formal.
Nope. It's updates. Okay, any further questions on that? No, the second piece I want to talk about is the document that you all received in the packet that caused quite a stir yesterday when it hit the press, and that's a letter from CAA. There are significant legal implications on that, so I would like to add an agenda item for this evening's meeting to occur after public comment, to discuss in executive session a draft memo from Attorney Mankey, which is subject to attorney-client privilege. So I would entertain a motion to add an agenda item for those purposes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda. Comments or questions? Anyone?
So I'll hold any questions I had to that, so that's.
Right, just on this motion to do so. All right, but questions relative to the document
To the
will be
letter.
an executive session. Okay. All right, hearing no other questions, let me try your minds. Those on Zoom, and or verbal?
I'm sorry, Matt, we're now voting on whether to go into
We're
executive
voting on
session?
adding the agenda item
Ah, okay.
only, which is an executive session.
Yep.
So let me try your minds. Those on on Zoom, hand up or voice vote, and those in the room?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries, and it carries by more than the 2/3 majority needed for adding an agenda item after it's been posted, or at the meeting rather. Okay, item number 4, Finance Committee report. Serena, or is it you? or
I
is it Bob?
I'm here, and Tom is going to give you a full review of that report.
Thank you, Serena.
Thank you. For July, under the airfield account, the revenues excluding lessee subsidy, which the subsidy was 174,455. But the revenues excluding that came in about 2,800 over budget, and actual subsidy was lower than budget by about 132,552. Year-to-date revenues excluding the subsidy were 89,356 against the budget of 64,000, or 24,000 over the budget. So that's good news above revenue. Expenses for August for the airfield came in under budget by about 129,000. Year-to-date, the expenses are better than budget by 236,000. On the administrative, the admin account, revenues for August are slightly above budget by about 2,292. Year to date, they're better than budget by about $3,706. Expenses for the month were $11,332 below budget. And year to date, they're $27,218. Actual net results for the admin fund for August was a slight negative, about $5,028, but still positive year to date. And the balance sheet overall, at the end of the period, was $125,303. I just want to point out again, I started off with the airfield, and there's a line item there that you'll see. It's the lessee's payment, and it's essentially what was previously subsidized by the city or the state. And again, in this month, the subsidy was $174,455. So, and I said July, I believe that was August, I'm sorry, should be August, yes.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for highlighting the lessee airfield reimbursement, because there are no longer local or state tax dollars going into to fund the operation of the airfield.
Yep.
Great. I did have a question on the airfield side, expenses, airfield personnel costs, and maybe this is Jeremy, way under budget. 145 versus anticipated budget number of 226. Vacancies, what do we
We
got?
do have a few vacancies, and we're supplementing those short with the staff. So it's-
I think part of that too was they were able to reduce the index, bring it back
Yeah.
down,
Yeah, however, yeah.
still carried those people.
So we have a assistant ops. Position.
Great.
And I'm not sure, is that number just for your side?
Okay, well, airfield, on the airfield account, airfield personnel. So. All right, well, thank you, Chair. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to airport managers, airfield operations.
Chairman? Try to keep this pretty minutes here.
No.
So we'll start with the events on Friday, the 13th. Many of you may have heard, we received a bomb permit here at the airport via email. We monitor several joint accounts, we'll call them just like general mailboxes, and received about 10:15 a.m. from an anonymous email that's used by various entities to cause chaos, and that's so we received that email, and we immediately contacted our contacts at TSA, Steve Blackberry, heads up their law enforcement division. We also had direct conversations with the police. And we also contacted the FBI. But it was very quickly made evident to us that it was a non-credible threat. Numerous other, it's actually a threat towards all airports in Connecticut, as well as other public facilities in the state, the federal public buildings. So, we were made brought to a certain level of comfort that it was not necessary to shut down operations or evacuate, but to be, proactive and to just ensure safety. We did, TSA was able to coordinate, as well as the city of New Haven, so K9 units down at the airport. We did a full search of the airport just to confirm there was absence of threats to the general public here. So that's like all the special thank you to TSA, State Police, City of New Haven, for they're always, at a moment's notice, giving us their resources. So people very confident in the support that we receive those agencies. So thank you to them for their expeditious response and support for that event. Eric, I think I asked Eric to start with their side, the airfield report. I mentioned last meeting that our FAA certification inspection had been completed. However, we hadn't received that official closeout. I just wanted to report that we have received that official notification that all of our discrepancies have been resolved from this year's inspection. So we do have that on file. We held our full scale exercise on September 25th. Very successful event. Hopefully we got to see some of the media coverage on that. We had close to 300 participants in that event. That's the largest full scale exercise that I'm aware of here at Tweed. Excellent coordination. Our ops team, specifically Dave Rieger, who's our regulatory compliance manager, and Dave Lewandowski, Mark Lewandowski did a fantastic job of helping coordinate that event and support the rest of the staff here. We had at least 20 plus agencies participating as well, and just shows a lot of unity and just overall cohesiveness and emergency planning here at the airport. So thank you to everyone, including we had a lot of call actors that posed as passengers who were injured. So they spent some time outside in some uncomfortable weather for a extended period of time. We tried to take care of them with some breakfast and lunch. And I think they walked in good experience with that. We held what we call a hot wash for those types of events. Basically, all the leaders of the various agencies come together. We also have evaluators that are present during the event that help give you some constructive criticism on how to improve your plan. So we had that event on October 4th. And so from those comments, we will be generating an after action report that we will share with Tom, making adjustments to our airport emergency plan quarterly. And speaking of the airport emergency plan, we are working with the FAA to, with all the changes that have been happening at the airport, we're in the process of doing a full update to the AEP of the airport certification, and then a full rewrite of the airport. We will be coordinating with New Havens, East Haven, and all of our sporting agencies to ensure that plan is comprehensive. That will feed into many of the documents that are working on. Another on topics with the FAA, we have Tom, I apologize if you already mentioned this, but on the 23rd, we have a coordination meeting with FAA for our CIP program. So that's this Monday. So we'll have a lot of people at the table going line by line through the projects. CIP is the airport capital improvement plan.
If I may, Jeremy, too, I believe FAA mentioned the last time they were here in person, it was back when America was here. I don't know if Lisa has been here.
All the years kind of.
Yeah, but it's always good to have them in person to see what's actually happening here.
Absolutely. Like you said, Tweed is officially the fastest growing airport. We are now classified as a small hub airport. We are the fastest growing airport in the country. Barring some small hub airports that have very small containment numbers, so the percentages of their growth are skewed. But Tweed is we're growing as anticipated. We held 3 kickoff meetings, planning meetings for various projects. One was the ramp and runway project, one was the ARC building expansion, and another is obstruction removal project. With some asterisks, we fully understand those. At this moment, we are pursuing those projects at risk. Understanding that federal funding has not been awarded from the FAA, so Avports is fronting the monies to do that engineering work until those projects have been officially approved and funded by the FAA, depending on the outcome.
If I can, just so everybody understands that, that is one of the major benefits of having a private operator. They can go forward at risk. If not, the airport would have to do it. If we didn't have the funding, we would have to wait another year cycle. So the fact that they put the money up and take the risk, you know, they're gonna go do design work and then apply it anyway, grant application.
So these things that he's talking about are items that you had on your CIP,
Correct.
and we even have letters of intent yet, or no?
No, the letters of intent are for longer, big term projects.
Okay,
The fact that it's in your CIP is usually a good indicator. But again, what'll happen is they basically, FAA called us and said, you can't put your application in because you don't have your EA done yet. So would you like to proceed at risk? And that's where Avport stepped up and said, yes, we want to proceed at risk, and FAA said, fine. So what they do typically is put a pin in it and say, okay, we're going to hold that money, get your entitlement money.
so these are the things, they said to you, these are the things you can proceed at risk if you want to.
Yeah, yep.
So
As
you
long as
had,
it's in your plan, you can do that. Yeah.
okay,
Otherwise, you're on your own doing it if not.
yeah, no. I was just trying to see what kind of.
Guarantee.
Feedback you were getting from that, but to give you some comfort in
Yeah,
front.
they're kept in the loop all the time. Sorry, Jeremy.
Couple more just, small items. We had a flight check. We installed so with a runway with the potential for a runway extension project, we would need to do some adjustments to some of our navigational aids. One being it's called the glide slope. Glide slope is an antenna that sits towards the approach end of the runway that has a navigational aid that provides horizontal, vertical guidance. The glide slope provides the vertical guidance to an aircraft flying inclement weather, low visibility conditions. So basically the placement of that glide slope, so they installed a temporary glide slope to determine if the placement would work based on the geography around that location. So the outcome of that flight check was very positive, meaning that the location where the glide slope would be installed, in the event we did extend the runway, the location would suffice. So that eliminates a lot of the potential headaches involved with whole host of things. So that was good. Last and final for airfield. Every year we are required to hold a runway safety action team meeting. That is a meeting where collectively the airport comes together, all the tenants. So that's the FBO, obviously aviation, that's Avalo, Avports, FAA Tech Ops, several others, as well as the FAA. And that meeting is actually hosted by the tower, which is our tower is a contract tower. So our tower does not have FAA employees, it has a contract tower through Midwest ATC. So they basically run through, any type of surface incidents that we had. You go through, you look at the airport layout, try to identify if anything that stands out that would be a safety risk for operations. Try to address it every year. On follow-up, we have action items that we work towards. So, we had a year with very minimal impacts to services, these things. But that was a productive meeting. We will have action and after action report that will be provided that very soon. Transitioning to land side, any questions on air side? No, I just
Transition right in.
left a lot out there on the table.
Any questions from Jeremy? Any on the Zoom? Hearing none, you want to proceed with the lessees report?
Okay, land side, a few items for we're right around the corner to the holiday season, so we're ramping up for holiday travel. Working on contingencies, we're expecting, full parking lots and terminals full of people, they know we adding the flights, so we're in that mode at the moment. We're always looking for ways to operationalize, find efficiencies. So we've done some improvements to the terminal, installed some programmable, Wi-Fi capable thermostats, provide some regulation of temperature, and just better control of that. Done some work in the restrooms. And we're getting ready to do some painting throughout the terminal, there's some touch-ups. And then we are working on a couple might have seen coming in with some deciding this portion of the terminal. Lots of cleaning up the area, we're doing some repaving out here around baggage arrivals. Just trying to tidy up some loose ends over the next few weeks that we have before the cold weather sets in. Trying to beautify the place, start to get some additional traffic.
Jeremy, when does, you said a couple of weeks, so would that be prior to Thanksgiving? When you start seeing that spike in traffic?
Yeah, even a little bit before that, late October or early November, I think to start to see some of that uptick.
So how would that increase in traffic impact the staff issues that would happen?
We're good staffing wise. I think, airside does supplement landside operations. I think, where you'll see some of the, if any challenges pop up, it's more in being able to accommodate other people in the park. We've lived and breathed the facility now long enough to kind of know, be able to expect to be a little bit more proactive and know what the habits of the customer, we have what contingencies in place. So we're just more anticipating, ramping up shuttle bus services. If we do get at capacity, working with our partners, we have to do offset parking, working with some local transportation companies to provide off-site transportation to customers and capacity issues, working with multiple hotels to have some additional space. So just those types of snow. We reach out to when we do use seasonal help here. So especially when we get into the winter months, when people adjust to the long snow removal duties. And we are looking to supplement our staff with part-time people. Just to help. There's a little bit more sometimes about flexibility.
Great. Robert, I just want to bring to everyone's attention the employment report, which is usually at the end of the thing, is usually a pretty good document, and you can see the patterns that have started to evolve. Although, we only have almost 2 years of history here, right? But they've already started to identify patterns, and it's no surprise that March is our biggest month, right? The 51,000 employments, right? It's also not much of a surprise that September and January are two of the lowest months. So these guys we now have a history, so this is a pretty good report to take a look at. Anything further, John? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to jump on what he was talking about staffing, because of the job fair, and were you able to pick up anybody out of that job fair? Supplement your staff?
Yeah, we do always gain some leads to do that. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. And there's also a host of other companies, Avalo and TSA,
Right.
leads that steal our process.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah,
Like 4 or 5 minutes.
so the job market is, I'll just give you an example. We posted a job, a management level job not too long ago, and we got one outside candidate that was qualified. So, that's consistent with what I'm hearing from other airports around. Say the country. But I can assure you, we have very dedicated staff who steps up against the gaps. But yeah, staffing wise, we do have long-term contingency or succession plan. Qualified candidates. What we think we've learned over the years is some of our jobs are more specialized, but if you find the right person, you can train everybody. So we're very open to finding those people that have the skill set to do the job and not necessarily focused on something with an aviation career per se. So it's always everything that
Any other questions, Jeremy?
I have a general question in regards to the actual ride share. Any update on where we stand? I flew out of the airport last month down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and unbeknownst to me at the time is that the Uber rider thought I was a package. Said he couldn't go on the property. I had to walk from the gate to the terminal. Any update or any change?
So with that on Uber?
Uber, yeah.
Yeah, so Michael reported today that he and Jorge Roberts from Avports met with Uber again. And they finally came around and said, we're not going to do anything special for a small airport. We'll only do that for large airports. And as Michael said, I wish they would have told us that a year or so ago when we began these discussions. So what Avports is going to be looking into is incentivizing riders to switch from Uber to Lyft and also utilize M7. And they're going to look at different incentives that they can offer to the passengers to do that. So unfortunately, Uber is not willing to cooperate because we're a small airport.
Tom,
And-
were
and-
we
and-
actually asking for anything special?
I'm sorry?
You
Asking
said
for
that
anything
Avport, that Uber doesn't want to give us anything special. I didn't realize
No,
we
but
were asking for
Av-
anything special.
they didn't want to pay the rates, and Avports made every effort to get creative and say, look, what if we package this? What if we did that? What if we, they gave them various alternatives to try to get them to, come in and abide by the rules, and they just said, we're not doing that.
And any concessions would wind up cannibalizing the relationships we have with Lyft and with M7,
So
because we'd have to go back and look at those agreements as well.
Well, if that's the case, how do we communicate this to the traveling public? Because one of the things that did happen upon my return, must have been 20 or plus of us that had to walk to the gate, outside the gate, to catch a Uber back.
There is a campaign that Michael Jones talked about this morning to drive public awareness to the fact that Uber is not a certified partner with the airport. And that's also part and parcel of the promotion of Lyft, promoting Lyft and M7 as the preferred rideshare providers.
Put that on the airport website.
yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah, we're gonna,
they're developing a whole plan for that,
Yeah.
shift the market share.
so,
And a little bit more, who is M7? What are
what's that?
M7? What are they? Who are they?
Oh, that's just dial 7 for a taxi, 777-777, Metro taxi,
Metro taxi.
Gotcha.
AKA M7. I didn't know about it, what it was either, when the first time I heard it, Robert. So. Any other questions? All right, let's move on to reports and action items. Resolution 598, approval of change order number 2 to Nina Construction for the residential sound insulation program. Is there a motion to waive the entire reading, since we all have the document in front of us, and just the last paragraph? A second?
Second.
They try your minds on that. All in favor? Aye. That carries. That carries. All right, who's going to address this one, Tom or Jeremy?
This is essentially a no-cost change order. It's just an extension of time for the contractor to complete the work. Associated with some of the COVID impacts that, because of supply chain, there were delays. So it's just an extension of the schedule.
The only question I had was why was it reduced by 66,000?
I think that was from a prior one, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to check on that. anymore, to be honest with you.
Anything,
Because that's it just said, it says reducing it and extending. it. So
Reducing.
usually when
costs.
you extend something, it costs more.
So,
No,
so it's a. We
Oh,
believe
that
it's
reduc-
related to
reduce-
reduction.
one home, that's what, yeah, that's what it was. Elected not to participate in the program.
okay, any further questions? All right, is there a motion that Tweeden Haven Airport Authority approves change order number 01 to the construction contract with Nina Construction, Inc. for the RSIP Phase 06 project, extending the Nina contract period to December 31st, 2023 at no additional cost to the RSIP Phase 606 project. The chairman, the secretary or treasurer is authorized to execute agreement modifications of the project on behalf of the authority. Is there a motion? And a second? Second. Any comments or further comments or questions? Let me try your minds. Those on the screen?
Aye.
Those in the room?
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. Resolution 599, same thing. Tom, you want
I
to,
believe it's the same project, if I'm not mistaken.
okay?
Jeremy, maybe you know more about this, or Felipe. One was for the contractor, and I think was this.
One is for the engineer firm.
Engineering, yeah, the oversight of it, so.
Seems like it works its extension of time.
That's my question, would be that they work hand in hand, and then the
Yeah.
engineering firm is obligated or under contract to close out the whole.
Yeah. It's like a resident engineer and the other's a contractor.
And that usually goes a month after. So it's good.
All right, any further comments or questions on this? Hearing none, an entertained motion, that the Tweeden Haven Airport Authority approves amendment number 03 to extend the period of performance of the Jones Paints Group, Inc. PSA task order number 05 for the RSIP Phase 06 project is January 31st, 2024 at no additional cost to the RSIP Phase 06 project. The chairman, the secretary or treasurer is authorized to execute agreement modifications of the project on behalf of the authority. Is there a motion? And a second. This is getting to be habit for me. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, let me try your minds. Those on the screen?
Aye.
Aye. Those in the room? Aye, that motion carries. Okay, any other business that members want to bring up for the good of the order? Hearing none. Let's go move on to public comment. Felipe, you start the driving here. Johnny Anonymous, your full name and address for the record, please. You're still muted. Up, hand went down. What's that?
Still. There he is.
Pat Crowell, 2 Minor Road, East Haven, Connecticut.
Could you speak up? We couldn't hear you at all.
Patrick Rowland, 2 Minor Road, East Haven, Connecticut. Can you hear me now?
We got you, Patrick. 3 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Perfect. So earlier you started with your discussion that you're having issues with whether or not the airport's going to flood again. And I realize that none of you care and none of you follow the rules, and there's NFIP regulations and FEMA regulations. But I want to be clear and on the record that the airport terminal as it stands today was extended and expanded beyond the 50% requirement for the FEMA regulations, which would have required it to be elevated and to meet all of the existing FEMA and NFIP regulations that were then in place. There's no doubt that all of the stuff that has been done exceeded 50% value, and that should have required everything that would include elevating, et cetera. So I disagree with whether or not the legality in following NFIP and FEMA flood, and that whether or not the state of Connecticut DEP had the authority to approve that. The second thing is that there's now the CAA letter that is in your board packet and you've talked about, and I just want to be on the record to find that incredulous that this has not been part of your board and part of your record and part of your meetings, and how you have been talking about this for the last year or two when it's not been in your minutes. Where during the period of time that this has been going on, that you have not had the CAA compliance, have you actually been talking about this? Is this the very, very, very first time that the board's been apprised of it? It has not been held in another meeting. It has not been discussed. I just find that completely incredible. The third thing is that I query how on earth we're even having this meeting today, with all due respect to Matt Hoey, who has exceeded his 8 years as a member of this board. If the Southern Council of Regional Governments has not been able to come up with a new appointment, he has still exceeded 8 years. And the law says you are only allowed to have 2 4-year terms. And if somebody has failed to be appointed, and so let's just assume that as Southern Council Southern Regional Council of Government, that Matt Hoey gets to be the continuing member of this board because nobody's been hired to, no appointed to replace him. There have been 3 monthly meetings of the Southern Council of Regional Governments. I believe that this board is remiss and actually contributing to violating the state statute. And that state statute you actually mentioned earlier is 267A 15120G to 15120 that is in your regulations, is already in your minutes. You talked about it. And Matt Hoey is not legally allowed to be a member of this committee. It's insane that you've gone beyond your 8 years in the board. The rest of the board members have not taken it upon yourselves to expel him. And I just, I know you're not going to reply. This isn't a chat session. I just want to be on the record. I want to have this clear that the rest of you are all violating your responsibility as members of this board to not get a new member.
Mr. Rowland, thank you for your comments. You've exceeded 3 minutes. Next up, Felipe. We have a Gloria Bellachico.
Hello, Gloria Bellachico, 300 Lighthouse Road in New Haven. I just want to let you know that this meeting was probably the worst audio I've heard. Yeah, I don't know if you have it set up differently in there. Maybe you can invest in some better equipment, something, but it was very tinny. I couldn't hear anyone except for Tom and Matt Huey telling Patrick that his time was up. That came over very clear. I don't know how anyone on Zoom is voting on anything because I can't imagine they can hear anything clear either. This is like very tinny. I don't know who's talking. It was just poorly done. And that's all I have to say. Oh, there's more, but another day.
Thank you, Gloria.
You're welcome.
Sandra Reiners.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. I tuned in late, but I do believe I heard Tom.
Name and address for the record, please.
Of course. Sandra Reiners, 42 Stannard Avenue, Brantford. I believe I heard Tom talking earlier about many public comments would be addressed in future meetings. It seemed that that was the gist of what he was saying earlier. And if that's the case, I do applaud that, because in the past, I believe the public has felt we're talking into a vacuum with no feedback. So if that is the case, I definitely applaud that effort. I think it's very important to respond to some of the questions that the public has. And there was one point I do wish to inquire about further, and that is, I know I'm not going to get an answer today, but perhaps at a future meeting. When Tom, when you mentioned that the entire airport property is federally obligated property, I would really like to understand, I think the public would like to understand, perhaps even the board members, what does that mean? Does that mean that the land for which federal grants have been issued may not be privatized? And more specifically, what does that mean with regard to the city of New Haven and the city of East Haven's town charter and rights with respect to zoning and building permits. If you could help define or help us understand, what does federally obligated property mean? What are the limitations? What are the exemptions, et cetera? It would be very helpful. I would like to also second the comment that was made just previously regarding the audio. I see several people sitting in the conference room, and I know it is important frequently to have meetings where you are meeting together and in public. Nonetheless, the audio from the conference room does need tweaking. I think that there are microphones in front of a couple of the speakers. There was no microphone in front of Jeremy. Unfortunately, a lot of this was not audible to the audience. We heard everyone on Zoom extremely clearly, but perhaps a microphone in front of every speaker, whatever you need to do to tweak the audio portion from your conference room would be much appreciated by the public. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Sandra. You too.
Thank you.
Gabriela Campos.
Good afternoon. How are you, fine folks?
Good afternoon, Gabrielle. I'm well, thank you, and
I'm
hope you are
glad.
as well.
I am alive, which is good. So my name is Gabriela Campos. I am from Stewart Street. And thank you for your time today. I have a couple of questions. The CAA letter definitely has brought up a lot of questions in the community. You may be aware there were articles in the Register and the CT Mirror, and that's for the board so that you have an opportunity to look that up. It seems that based on the dates that a lot of the changes that have happened, this 3,000% increase in employments have been done outside of that time. And some of the changes that have happened physically in the airport also happened beyond the time that there was, licensure from the CAA. And so I want to know, like, legally what happens. Were all of these changes done illegally? Is there a fine? Who holds the bag for that? The bonds, somebody asked about the FAA and those grants. It's the city of New Haven who's responsible for paying those should the airport cease to exist suddenly. Those of you who are from the community, I did a lot of research on that. Feel free to reach out to me. The staff did not contact me last month, Matt, as you had suggested that they do, regarding questions I asked in the chat. No one reached out to me. The staff is certainly knows my email and knows how to get a hold of me. So I'm disappointed because I had some, pretty specific questions. I'm curious about that somebody overheard in the grocery store that there was an incursion. And that's a safety issue that has to be reported to the FAA. It would be nice to know when those happen, just so that we have a sense of the safety of the airport. That is a concern that we have in the community, being that we're so close to the runway in the neighborhood surrounding it. I'm also wanting to implore you to not approve any changes ahead of the EA process, as I think that you'd be putting the cart before the horse. I don't know who would pay for that. Would it be covered by a grant? Would that, if you are then in violation because they choose not to allow the runway extension, like they've blocked it for decades previous to now? So I'm just curious as to what, how that change would be helpful. I think it would actually harm the board and its responsibility. But that's something for y'all to figure out. I'm just raising it as a concern. And that's pretty much it. I do want to ask you to please be considerate of the important migratory area that you're in, and that it is that we now have bald eagles in the neighborhood. 3 different spottings have been made right near the airport. And, given that there have been bird strikes that have killed federally protected birds already, it would be a big shame if that happened. And also I think it'd be very dangerous in the size of the bird. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Lorena Venegas.
Hi, Lorena Venegas, 73 George Street, East Haven. I am the only person in East Haven who has gone to the most Tweed Airport Authority meetings, and I can certify and verify that Matt Hoey has overextended his term limits. I was there way before 2019, and I'm still here today. I deserve a seat on this board, and Scrog knows it, and every mayor in New Haven County knows it. For this airport not to be licensed is just like a nail technician or a doctor. A doctor cannot operate if they don't have a license, neither can an airport. In terms of our EA messaging, it hasn't been clear, and East Haven gets nothing but all the burdens of pollution, traffic, and noise. And I'm really troubled that there is no community quote unquote benefits plan, because Avports knows that they have done way more across the nation at other airports. Other airports have noise buttons where people can report their noise conflicts. Other people have health-related asthma health accounts. Other people get reparations on their homes. But when I read today's agenda and just saw the noise insulation program being extended for more money, more time for just the same 10 houses, what about everybody else? What about everyone else who's suffering with over 90 and 100 decibel readings? Even though the federal definition might be one thing, I do know for sure that those 737-800 planes under the manufacturer X specifications should not be using a 5,600 foot runway at all right now today. Those should be, it's a public safety hazard to be using that plane on this runway. You need 9,000 to 11,000 feet for that. And you don't need to be a pilot. You don't need to be an engineer. You need to be a really good specialized reader, which is what I am. I pay very close attention to detail, and I'm glad there's a media storm about this licensing. And there's other things coming up. I mean, I just read today, Jorge Roberts wrote a letter to the governor about that he's upset about CAA. That I want to see that letter, and I'm going to get my hands on that letter. And I probably already have it in my inbox. A reporter probably going to get it for me through Freedom of Information Act, which is the only tool that I have used for over 4 years to get the primary resources that my community needs. And this board has become so politicized with not one expert who's scientifically oriented, who can analyze and ask clear questions. And I am appalled by the non-activity that's happening on this board. Many of you should just resign tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorena.
Thank you, Lorena.
Catherine Bennett.
Hi, my name is Catherine Bennett. I live at 463 Thompson Avenue here in East Haven. And I would like to bring up the de-icing system at Tweed. I'm hoping that you plan to do some upgrades on it before the winter comes with your increase in enplanements and more flights. From 2020, a maximum of 36,000 gallons per day of aircraft de-icing wastewater was discharged into the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control, so basically back into the water. And that was in 2020. And I realized that they do collect some, but they're only required to collect 60% of the de-icing fluid, which means 40% of the fluid is going into the air and directly into the ground and into the water. Now, this de-icing fluid is treated to adjust the pH, but in large amounts, it results in low oxygen levels in the streams and the waterways, which can kill the organisms that live there. There is also new research that says that the chemical, the glycol, causes harmful deposits in the body and can lead to serious health problems. So 40% is just going right into the air. Now, there are other airports that have the technology to handle this de-icing fluid in a much better way. They can collect more and actually recycle and reuse the de-icing fluid. So I'm hoping that you're adding that to your discussion and trying to upgrade the de-icing there. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Catherine. Michael Giordano.
Good afternoon, Michael Giordano, 800 Lago Drive in Juno Beach, Florida. I would like to counteract the previous caller and just say I think the board is doing a fantastic job. I like some of the new members on board, bringing some fresh blood into the equation. And so with Tom Rafter's leadership, I think the next couple of years is going to be really, really tremendous for this board. And I also like to say I'm looking forward to this coming winter season holidays and into the 2024 February and March vacations, because Avelo has got our schedule looking good. We're going to keep setting records and keep that #1 fastest growing airport in the country continuing as long as possible. Have a good night.
Thank you, Michael. Tony Laurenti.
Good afternoon to you, everyone. Tony Laurenti, captain, undisclosed airline, Meriden, Connecticut, Briar Lane. In response to callers regarding the question regarding federally obligated lands, you can find a good deal of information. Advisory Circular 150/5190-6. Exclusive rights at federally obligated airports. It's an FAA publication for the very types of questions being raised. Took me 10 seconds or less to find that on the Google. Regarding the caller stating the runway incursion, we now find out these sorts of things from the grocery store. I find that to be somewhat unsubstantiated rumor. We can find this information at FAA.gov, NTSB.gov. A random point of interest for you all, Spirit will be discontinuing service from Bradley to Orlando. Spirit Airlines, again, discontinuing Orlando-Bradley service. Can't help but wonder why. I don't have an official report for you, but I can tell you no diversions for the month of September. Regarding the caller talking about an airport license, we have one, or Tweed does, I should say, that's called Part 139. And then you do need to be a pilot to fly a plane, to speak about performance in such detail. For everyone on the board and on this call, you may be one day one of my passengers. I take your safety of the highest level of responsibility. And the quote of 9,000 to 11,000 feet for a 737, that would negate almost every airport in the Northeast. That's simply pointless banter from someone trying to impress with knowledge that doesn't exist. I fly the planes. It doesn't work that way. That's utter nonsense. And just ask yourself, what exactly would Avelo be doing if they were illegal and shouldn't be operating on a 5,600 feet? It's called airport performance for a reason. I'd also just like to jump back to the issue about birds, take some of the liability off the airport. Being the person responsible for my passengers and my crew in the airplane, I take responsibility in avoiding birds. It's in everybody's interest. Thank you. I heard a comment about 36,000 gallons per day of de-icing fluid being dispersed. That would imply de-icing needed to be done every day. We know that's not the case. And remember, when you hear about de-icing fluid, everyone, they're spraying it on the aircraft that you're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. That's it. No one else wishing to address the board? I'll give you another second or two. Going once. Going twice. All right, public comment section is closed. Next item on the agenda is to move into executive session. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
Mr. Chairman, if I
I could, I'd like to have a motion include, the basis from going into executive session.
That we agree.
And, it would be under statutory provisions 1-200 subsection 6E. And also statutes 1-210 subsection B 1 and 4. That's for talking about pending claims or strategy with regards to any kind of threatened litigation. And also preliminary drafts that will be discussing here, which is the document that you referenced that I created. And also there's the attorney-client privilege that weighs in here. So that would all be incorporated into the motion to go into executive session.
Thank you, Hugh. Is there someone who's willing to make that motion, including the language Hugh has just included? Thank you, Mark. Second. Let me try your minds. Those on the screen? On Zoom? Those in the room? Aye. All right, we're gonna have to clear clear everyone, but we're gonna invite Hugh to stay here, Tom to stay, and do you want Milena as well?
Yes, what we're going to need to do though is the members that are on Zoom, we're going to be sending you a link for a Teams meeting. That will be the executive session. And then we'll come back into the Zoom meeting after the executive is concluded.
All right, so let's plan on 5 minutes, possible health break for anyone who needs one, and
So just to remind, check your emails. We'll be sending you a link for a Teams meeting for the executive session. Milena will be doing that. Thank you.
okay. Is there a motion to come out of executive session? And a second.
Second.
Any comments or questions on that? Hearing none, let me try your minds. Those on the screen?
Aye.
Those in the room? Aye. Thank you. In executive session, there were no motions made. There were no actions taken. There was significant and healthy discussion. So I want to thank my colleagues on the board for that. Is there a motion to authorize the authority in the person of Tom Rafter or myself, that depends, to sign the application that the CAA has requested we fill out with the language that we had discussed in executive session. And if anyone wants that read, I'd be happy to do it, but the language that we included would appear on the application itself. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Second, thank you very much. Comments or questions, discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Certainly.
I'd like the language to be modified based on our discussion.
Okay.
Of the competition.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
I have one, Matt, just to make clear for the record that it's our understanding that the application that we're discussing is really more of an administrative one, and that the airport has continued to operate this entire time under the regulation of the FAA and has been fully compliant with FAA safety standards, just to be clear about that.
Thank you, Rich. That's a good point to reiterate. Okay, any other further comments or questions? Let me try your minds. Those in favor?
Aye.
On the screen, that's 5 on the screen. Those in the room? Aye. Opposed? 1. Thank you. That motion carries. I want to thank the board for honest and good discussion on this issue. Regardless of how we all feel about how it comes out at the end, I think we've done something that's important for the authority, and I think it will be well received in many quarters. So I want to thank everybody for their efforts. And anyone have any other comments before we close?
There's one question. When will we issue this?
That's going to go out almost immediately.
To all media outlets as well?
I believe. Well, this is going to get that statement. Yeah, we'll get something else. All right. With that, there's no other business to be conducted. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Serena. You weren't waiting on that one.
I wasn't waiting, not at all, not at all.
It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening. what's left of it.
Take care,
See you
everybody.
guys.
Thank you all.
Take care.
How come-